Welcome back. Today we're talking about a few things, specifically Patreon, but before we do that, just want to let you know about a few updates. So first of all, the Community Material Pack, our collection of free material resources for the Blender community, has been updated to version 4. However, this is only available to my patrons for now. This is due to a new system and strategy I'm working with for getting more updates made for free projects. The simple version is this: the Patreon wage decides how many hours per month I work on free projects for the community. Considering the Patreon wage is not that large at the moment, it means it's only paying for maybe 3 to 4 hours per month, and that's not really enough for me to get into a flow, so I have been working overtime. So the idea is, as I reach milestones or checkpoints when it comes to project updates, if those are achieved during overtime, then they won't be released to the public until the Patreon wage catches up to the overtime. However, people that are on the Patreon $5 tier and above will get pre-release access to that. The reason for doing this system is to kind of resolve this thing that's been preventing me from working on free projects over the last few years. Like, I want to work on free projects. I want to help people get excited about using Blender, and it's really one of the fun things about the community is just how much free stuff there is for people to play with. And if you haven't already, I recommend taking a look at the Blender demo projects page on the official Blender website. It's where you can download all the free splash screens. And I've always kind of been a pillar for distributing free content for the community. We've had hundreds of thousands of downloads for different resources, and you may remember all sorts of things going back from like the Nebula resources to like the random weapon generator and all sorts of other things. However, you know, there are lots of responsibilities when it comes to living and being a creator, and I don't like the idea of income dictating everything I do. However, there was always that anxiety of, well, if I waste too much time working on free things for no return, then am I just shooting myself in the foot? Again, I am someone who has responsibilities to attend to, specifically medical responsibilities. As you may know, I've got a bunch of conditions that I like to keep track of. Now, educational responsibilities. There's a difference between these. One of them is not my choice and one of them is. So I'm starting uni in a couple of months. That's by choice. The medical conditions are not my choice. Some things I don't have to pay for. For example, I do pay a bit of rent to live in this house. You know, it's a family home, but I don't have to pay for food at the moment, so things balance out. However, I'm kind of stagnating at the moment, so it's a little bit tricky to justify working on free things, which, to be honest, tend to take more time than paid things a lot of the time. For example, things like the Easy BPY module, which simplifies the Blender Python API. That is a relatively small project in principle, and in terms of file size especially, but it can take a long time to like test and update. They would be sped up by having some auto testing features, which a lot of people have recommended. However, building those tests also takes time. Another big project is the blend.stream project, the Netflix of Blender, which is probably one of my favorite projects we worked on, and yet also one of the most abandoned ones. The reason for that is because it requires a high degree of skill and specialized skills. Not necessarily in terms of like web development skills like, you know, Next.js, whatever, but also specialized knowledge of the platforms that it's hosted on, like Vercel and Supabase. The website is specifically designed and optimized in a way that it doesn't exceed free tier limits for these services. However, these services change over time. What that means is that the people working on it and maintaining it, so just me at the moment, need to spend the time to keep on track of what the services are working on and changing for the platform. Effectively meaning that I can't solo work on it, because that can already become in itself a full-time job on top of having to moderate the films that are submitted to it. So I've kind of held off on talking about that web project for a while because it's just been a bit of a difficult one to fit into this paradigm of work. If the Patreon wage was large enough, and by large enough I'm thinking about £3,000 to £4,000 a month, which it's nowhere near at the moment, then I would be able to hire someone to keep on track of that project. On top of the Vercel Supabase changes, someone who would be able to migrate it to other services if needed, and someone who could moderate the content, accept or reject the submissions, etc. If my Patreon wage was again around £3,000 to £4,000 a month, I could, in theory, work on free things for the Blender community completely, as in no more paid products. In theory, that's allowed. In reality, I probably would also work on paid products on top, but I just want you to imagine for a minute. Obviously, some of my largest projects are like the Afterglow lighting resources for Blender. It's huge and extremely powerful, and it will grow over time. And add-ons such as modular workspaces. It has a massively powerful feature set, including the ability to split your interface quickly using pie menus, auto-applying favorite settings to things like the asset browser, unpacking collection assets in a way that's more powerful than Blender's own, making instances real for collection assets, auto-organizing things, etc. Imagine if these two things were free. Completely free. Imagine if they were free from the beginning, that the Blender community would just have this powerful lighting toolset available for everyone, and this add-on just available for everyone. I could do that, in theory. and develop more tools like that for free, but I don't have the wage to justify that. So we're going to talk a bit more about the changes that have been made to the Patreon to try and encourage this growth, and just generally the psychology behind it. Because obviously, like I said, I'm starting uni in 2 months now. I've been doing a whole lot of pre-learning, and I've been developing my own lab space, which you can't see at the moment, but it's behind you. Don't get scared. What I did was I sat down and I kind of meditated on the thought of all the different types of work I've done over the last 6 or 7 years in relation to YouTube. Because it's been about that long. It's weird to think that we're already coming up to a decade in a few years. So I've tried a little bit of everything, and maybe to the disappointment of some people, I haven't stuck to one particular thing, but as someone with a bit of an R&D personality, as I describe it, research and development, I'm an experimenter, a scientist in some way. I just like to try different things. I've done the big corporate sponsorships. You know, I did that with NVIDIA. I decided, hey, I like these things, I don't like these things. I decided not to continue doing corporate sponsorships. I tried doing community-led sponsorships, and they were nice and some annoying parts about that, but generally more positive overall. I've done affiliate marketing. I've done just general free advertising to see how the community would react. I've tested all different ideas with product creators, collaborations, etc. I've made my own products, obviously. I've done the Patreon stuff. I've made literally every size of free project and paid project, functional add-on code stuff, and more artistic things. I've had a hand at making course-like content on the Patreon, just as a bit of a test, but not done a full course yet. The point is I've basically experimented with lots of different things. And as a creator, I've learned what of these things produces the most anxiety and which doesn't. And this is something that I think you might resonate with if you are a creator that's thinking about putting your own stuff out there. So let's talk about anxiety. Most of my income comes from product sales. The sale of one large product can make more than an entire month's income on YouTube. Which is why, if you're looking for sustainability, it's not necessarily the best idea to grind for maximum views on YouTube. That's like a very fast way to burn yourself out without much return. It's also why I've been able to have the flexibility to experiment a lot while other Blender YouTubers haven't, because they haven't really invested the time into making something valuable that can be packaged for people in terms of like a product. However, imagine this. You release a product, it makes £3,000 in a month. You think, ooh, nice, wow. That will give me a bit of relief. The future's looking bright. If I can make this much in a month, then maybe I'll be able to do this as a job. However, making a nice amount of money in one go does not subvert the anxiety of performance. The reason for that is because it introduces a worry that that level will not be maintainable the next month, or the month after that, or the month after that. And what I'm hearing from a lot of product creators, people who, unlike me, are just exclusively product creators, is that it's getting harder and harder to A, find the customers, B, encourage customers to try the products, and C, by extension, maintain a stable income. So making a lot of money in one go with a product doesn't actually subvert the anxiety, and that's a way that I have to do it as someone that keeps disappearing from the work due to like medical reasons most of the time, and I release my products in short bursts. So you could make like £3,000 one month and then nothing for the rest of the year, and then fundamentally you'll look back on it and go, oh wow, that was actually terrible. Another line of work that produces anxiety is client work, which is something that I am interested in under certain circumstances. Like I've mentioned before, scientific viz, interesting. However, it's not very scalable because you are limited in time. There are several avenues for anxiety to creep in. One is finding the clients, B is maintaining the clients, and C is negotiation. D is also, again, the income and projecting that into the future. You may make a lot of money one month and then nothing for the rest of the year. As I've looked back on all the stuff I've done, and as I try and balance all the things I want to do, again, including spending more time on free projects for the community, spending more time on different types of videos that have inherent value, but are not inherently like, you know, viral hits, while still making an income, basically trying to get everything at once, which is difficult. The least anxiety-inducing path I can think of is if I had a symbolic wage of stability, the only thing that provides that is Patreon, because it says to you, you will make this next month, and the month after that, and the month after that. And even if people leave, if one person leaves, it doesn't collapse the whole system. It takes effort to gain it, and it takes effort to lose it somewhat. Then that subverts the offset future anxiety, and also provides an excuse to work on the things that don't directly generate high income. So with that in mind, I decided that it's time to invest more time in the Patreon, which means more benefits for people that are signed up, and also trying to make everything cohesive and connected. So effectively, we are all working together now. If you want an update for a free project, you let me know, I work on it, and it becomes available at a certain point in time. If the Patreon wage is too small, then it will be private until the overtime is paid for. Effectively, free things will get made, but you are in control of when it becomes public. That's the compromise. But like I said, when those checkpoints are hit, it will be pre-release available to the $5 tier patrons and above. And you could say, yeah, well, people could sign up to the Patreon and then just share that with people. Sure. I'll say you're not allowed, but I know people will anyway, but that's not really the point. Those projects will become free eventually anyway. However, if people do kind of share the pre-release versions without telling me, then those people won't get access to like the fixes, the updates, etc. By sharing it preemptively behind my back, you're not really helping it to become properly publicly available any sooner. But what this kind of time system does is it helps me to feel like my time is protected. And I do reserve the right to make executive decisions to like suddenly release something to the public whenever I want, or to move it like closer to the time. If I feel like it's required, maybe there's like a certain release coming up for Blender or whatever, I reserve the right to do that. But this is just a way for me to protect my time. But as well as this, I'm also working on more exclusive things for the patrons, things that will not become public. So for one thing, there's a new sticker pack available. This is part of like a series going on that'll be going into the future called the Artsy series. So there's the Artsy sticker pack now, which is a bit of a funky one. Me and my attention deficit, I doodle all the time while I'm working. And I always look at things and I think, how can I recycle this? How can I be economical with even like the scraps that I output? So I scan in all my doodles and I've turned them into stickers for Blender, so I can reuse them for 3D artwork. Also, I've got branded elements on there as well that can be used as stickers, and there's a demo file as well so you can see how things work. But there's more stuff I want to do with that. Like I've got lots of scans for other things that I want to make available to the patrons. So yeah, and also I've been speaking to a lot of other creator friends recently, and I've let them know that if the Patreon wage gets high enough, maybe past £1,000 a month, I will then siphon some of that wage onto other creators so that they can also have boosts of income, generate value for people, which then either A, I will then make exclusive to the patrons, so there'll be this nice feedback loop, or B, then release freely to the public. So what I'm trying to do is find ways to link together the least anxiety producing method of work for my personality, while also trying to have this cyclic beneficial loop where my time gets protected and more value gets produced everywhere. So for the community and for those supporting exclusively. Now, I've observed other creators in the space that have felt the pressure of the changing economy and had add-ons and other projects that were free but are now paid. And I'll be honest with you, I have thought about doing that as well. But pay attention here, I don't want to. I don't want to be the person that goes back through all of those old resources, all the free things people have enjoyed, and put a price tag on them, because I don't think that's fair, kind of culturally. People have gotten used to those things existing, and they've learned a lot from them, and they've adapted them for their work, and it's not something I want to interrupt, because I feel like that's disturbing the culture of what's made me. But when I felt the pressure, I have sat and thought and made a calculation that if everyone who downloaded something of mine on Gumroad alone gave $1, I would have already made a full-time wage for 15 years. Strictly speaking, if you gave me $1 every time you downloaded something, I could have just made you free stuff for 15 years. So maybe try giving $1 on the Patreon, like $1 a month, maybe? Like I said, I mean, the $5 get the exclusive content, but like $1. For other video series that I know people love, things like the Community Roundup series, where I put the work into researching projects from around the community so we can share people, that's great. But it takes a damn long time to do the research. It's not as fun as you think it is. I mean, it was fun for like, a while, but I like to sit down and actually kind of assess the content, see where the value is in the content, and then tell you that. There are a lot of other creators online that just kind of spout off the things that are there, like a list, just to kind of grind out the content. I don't like doing that, but it takes time. And that's the whole point of this system. Time is money. So what I'm also thinking of doing is on this overtime roadmap, where again, the Patreon pays for the time, every month it knocks off the overtime until things get released. I might also put certain video series on that overtime. For example, things like the Community Roundup series. So if it takes me a long time to research a video that's community focused and has community benefit, then I might throw that on there as well. And say, look, after 20 hours of overtime, I finished making this video, so when that's paid for, that'll be released. I won't do that with every video though. I'm making sure that only the hours that are recorded for the overtime are things that are beneficial to the Blender community. And this is all transparent, by the way, as I mentioned recently. If you go to docs.curtisholt.online, I have made notes for every single thing that I've worked on in the time that is recorded for the overtime. So you can go back and read what I was working on. Recently, we've been mostly doing work on BY-GEN version 10, which is actually going really well. And I want to tell you more about that, so I will now. So BY-GEN version 10 is a large redesign of the generative modeling add-on that became quite popular. How I've described it is more of a logic tool than an artistic tool, but it's still an artistic tool. Before, we had very stylized effects that you could add as presets to objects that you had selected. This time, instead of having hyper stylized presets, we're having logic libraries. So for example, if we're thinking about things inside of a mesh volume, or things which are the mesh surface, or things which are above the surface, so again, these three principles, if you select an object and you want to create an effect over the surface, you might go to the distribution logic option and then apply that, and it will apply a node tree full of node groups that are pre-set up and pre-designed to help you build distribution effects over a surface. Similarly, with mesh, you might say, let me go for the deformation logic library. You'll apply that and it'll be a node tree with a bunch of groups to help you get different deformation effects. Now, it is kind of similar in principle to how a lot of people have done asset libraries with node groups, but the thing is they lack context a lot of the time. Well, that's how I think about it. So with BY-GEN, I've always been working on this three pillar system, surface, mesh, and volume, where you look at an object you have and you go, what do I want to happen to it? Inside, on it, or above it? And I can also double up this system where we can mark the node groups as assets, so people could then recycle the BY-GEN add-on content as asset libraries if they wanted to. BY-GEN supports a really complex variety of ways to apply geometry nodes effects to objects based on ways that they're described in the blend files. So for example, if a geometry node tree has a certain prefix to it, it would change the behavior of how things are applied when it's imported with BY-GEN. So behaviors like that are what distinguish it from just being an asset library compared to an add-on. But again, this takes a long time to work on, and me and Charon have been collaborating on the logic libraries, and we've had some really disgusting but really cool results. So again, when that's ready, when we hit that milestone, if the patron wage is still small and hasn't paid for the overtime by then BY-GEN version 10 will become available to the $5 tier patrons exclusively, and it will only become public once that overtime has been paid for. And if that's been a bit confusing, I do have an analogy for you. Okay, so imagine it like a race. We have like a massive open field, like a savanna or something, right? Now, you're standing there and I've got a head start. So I'm gonna run away, spending time on doing things. When I finish making something, I plant a flag in the ground and I go, hey, here's an update to node group tools. Oh, I do actually have a flag, hang on. It's got my logo on it, right? So I go, okay, here's an update for your favorite free project. Come and get it. And then I keep wandering off. And the distance between us is the time I spend on community projects. You need to come and get it. I will keep moving, working on another project, and I will plant a flag elsewhere. And to reach these checkpoints, you, being the patrons, are paying every month to take a few steps towards that flag. And when you reach it, it becomes public. That's how the system will work. To make this simpler for people to understand, I have also redesigned the Patreon. So the tiers are now more reminiscent of like the Blender Development Fund, because I feel like that's easier to understand. So you've got like bronze, silver, gold. I believe there's platinum, sapphire, unobtainium. And these have slightly different benefits, but the benefits aren't that different. Again, $5 tier and above exclusive files. There's also things like getting discounts on new paid products when they're released. And again, about the paid products, this doesn't mean I won't keep making paid products, because I will. I'm just seeing them as two like areas of business, and they will keep getting updates. But also like, think of it as a competition, because if the Patreon doesn't grow, then I'm not going to spend more time working on free things because I've got to start protecting myself. So I'll just keep working on the paid products, and like the paid product customers will be happy because I'll only be making things for them. So at that point, you're just competing with each other. Like we've got the Patreon and the free community who want to vie for the time for updating all the projects. And then we've got the paid customers that don't want me to work on the free projects because they want bigger, chunkier updates for the things they paid for. Because I'm kind of done with the responsibility of trying to figure out exactly what you want, or like what the system wants, what YouTube wants, etc. So you two groups fight it out. And while you do, I'm going to be studying for my degree. Okay? So there's a whole new Patreon page on my website, curtisholt.online/Patreon. It's really pretty. It explains everything in a much more simpler way. And also for the people that have access to exclusive files, curtisholt.online/members. That's been redesigned, very pretty as well, and you'll be able to access everything there. So that's what's happening. Now, if you excuse me, I've got some actual science to do. I've got a little blood sample from an extended family member who's a cancer patient. I'm going to do a differential leukocyte count for them. They were kind enough to let me take a small sample. I've also upgraded my microscope setup. I've like kind of 3D printed an adapter for my 4K camera and everything, and I've kind of reached the limit of light microscopes now, which is great. I've kind of like hit the end of the tech tree, but you don't really care about that. That's like my passion side of things. So anyway, that's where we're going to leave it. Again, the responsibility is no longer just mine. It's on you. And I know some people will complain about this, but, you know, I think most people understand. Oh, another YouTuber complaining about not making enough money. Patreon.